Hoegaarden Blanche.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Band, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I have got some Hoegaarden. Why I have not reviewed this earlier, I do not know. This is like an old friend. When I started really getting addicted to wheat beer and I couldn't get hold of the German stuff, this was the only stuff that was available. Now, as you know, or may not know, German wheat beer and Belgian Witbier differ quite a lot. The only thing they've got in common is they've got wheat in them. Apart from that, they're completely different, they taste different, and they've got different characteristics. I like this, and I know it's brewed by AB InBev, I'll get onto that in a minute, but it's a good beer, and I have drank quite a bit of that. In fact, I used to share a flat with, what was he? It was a Ugandan fella, and he was a chef, and he'd come home, and he liked the beer, and he would come home with some absolute fucking dog shit like Budweiser and Heineken, and I said to him, look, you're a chef, why are you drinking shit beer? You need to start drinking decent beer. And I got him onto this, and by the time I stayed there a year, I was there for a year in this place, and by the time I left, that was all he'd drink. And he would only drink Hoegaarden. He'd come home with armfuls of the stuff. He absolutely loved it. And I remember him saying to me when I left, he says, oh, thank you for, letting me discover Hoegaarden. But I said to him, you really need to discover the German stuff. No, it can't be as good as this. So what do I know? But yeah, he really liked Hoegaarden. And I do as well. It's a typical nice Belgian Wit. But it's got a history, and that history is pretty unique. Let me explain. Right, if you're going to think of Hoegaarden, or indeed Belgian Witbier, there's one person that should immediately come to the fore if you're going to, if you're going to mention this or pretend you know something about it, and that is Pierre Celis. Now, Belgian Witbier is nothing new. That was brewed in the 14th century, and it was brewed right up. It fell out of favour, came back again, fell out of favour. But in 1957, the last Belgian Witbier brewer went out of business and shut down. So effectively, there was nobody carrying on that traditional style of Belgian beer. Now at the time, this fella, Pierre Celis, he was a milkman, and he really lamented that. That loss of Belgian beer tradition, and he thought, and he lived in a place called Hoegaarden. Hoegaarden is a place in the Flemish Brabant, and he lived in Hoegaarden, and he used to help out in the brewery every now and again. So he knew a little bit about it, and he thought, do you know what? I'm not having this. I'm going to fucking start brewing this stuff. And he went round the population who remember the original stuff, and he would be asking them, and he really experimented, got it right. It got it to the flavour of the older style of Belgian Witbier, and that's how Hoegaarden was born. And whenever you drink a Belgian Witbier now, you have that man to thank, because if it wasn't for him, that style of beer would be dead. Even if it was revived, it would have tasted different, because I'm sure, well, it's arguable, but I don't think it would have tasted the same. You could have had people trying to find recipes, etc., but I think he got it at the right time. 10 years later, he was actually physically brewing it, but he was researching it before then. So if you stopped drinking a beer sort of 5 years ago, you got a pretty good idea of what it tastes like. And if somebody's handing you attempts to recreate that style, and you can say, no, that tastes nothing like it, or yeah, that is fucking bang on. And that's what he did. And I think that's brilliant. And he became really popular. And I remember when this stuff came over to the United Kingdom, and I lived in Tottenham, I lived in Wood Green at the time, and the pub around the corner started selling it. And I remember they had it on draft, and the glass was that size. I'm going back about 20 years ago, and it was like a German Witbier glass, and they poured it in there. And now you can imagine your average lager drinker would look at that and go, what the fuck is that? And at the time, your average lager was about £2.50. This stuff was nearly a fiver. And I remember me and a mate went into a pub, and it was a fucking Ponce's pub, to be honest. And we thought, oh, well, do you know what, we'll give this a go. And we ordered two, and the bloke wanted a tenner. I remember my mate, he's a Spurs fan. He don't like spending money. Who likes spending money? Well, nobody liked spending money on beer back then. You know what I mean? It's not like the craft beer scene now. But he fucking went mental. He said, why the fuck are you charging us tenner for two drinks? And the barman just stood there with his hands on his hips going, because it's Belgian. And we nearly didn't fucking drink it. But we'd ordered it, so we bought it. And no, I'm going to hold my hands up. I didn't like it. He didn't like it. It was just too much of a radical change. And it's testimony to the beer, because even though your hardened lager drinker wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, it eventually came to the fore. And now it's, you see it everywhere. It's in all the big supermarkets. I think I got this from Aldi, and you get it everywhere. But the history of his brewery, this Pierre Celis, this Hoegaarden brewery, this is going to be quite a long one, so if you're not into it, skip forward. But he brewed it, and he was really successful. But who turned up on the scene? Well, they weren't called AB InBev then, they were called Interbrew. And there's a reason that they came along. So, 1985, he was brewing successfully. He was doing really well. But in 1985, there was a fire in the brewery, and the brewery was virtually destroyed. Now, what I really liked reading about this, researching this, all the local Belgian brewers, they all helped. So they would donate money, they would donate equipment, try to get him back on track. Obviously, it wasn't enough. Interbrew came along and thought, I know, we'll help him out, we'll give him a loan. But he's quoted as saying that the loans that Interbrew gave him, he was pressurised, he felt pressurised into changing the recipe to make it more palatable for the mass market, and he wouldn't do it. So what he eventually did, he sold up, he got the money, and he just thought, you know what, fuck them. This is what they do. This is why, AB InBev, people say, oh, what's your problem with, these big corporations? This is what they do. They take over, and they'll change the recipe. Marston's have done it. They've done it with Witchwood. So, this is not a fallacy. This, if you do talk to these brewers, these corporations have to make a buck. They don't become corporations by being generous and, caring about, the consumer. They're all made up of fucking bean counters who want to save money, cut corners at every turn, maximise the profit, get as much money out of you as possible while pumping out the cheapest product. That's why, I have a problem with the big corporations. So there you go. Anyway, Pierre Celis, he thought, fuck it, I'm selling up. And he went to Texas, or Austin, Texas, if you like, and he opened up the Celis Brewery, and he started brewing the stuff over there. Now, Hoegaarden is still owned by AB InBev, and I have to say, it tastes okay. As Belgian Witbier goes, it tastes okay. I haven't tried this though for, it must be, 3-4 years now. So, with that said, it's longer than 3 or 4 years. What am I talking about? I was living in Essex at the time, in a place called Loughton. Fuck me, don't ever live there. If you look like me, don't fucking go there. That place is not for a rough bloke like me. If you've ever seen that thing, Towie, or The Only Way is Essex, it's full of people like that. Now, no offence to anyone who lives in Loughton, but fuck off. I am not living there. I lived opposite a Waitrose. The beer was good there, but fuck me, then I have to get some looks walking around Waitrose. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get this beer investigated. This is in a can. Usually it's in a bottle. I must admit, cans are a bit of a new one on me. I wonder how that's going to taste. It's 4.9%. It's 330ml. The ingredients, and they're all in German because this comes from Aldi, is water, Gaston malt, Tarve, I don't know what that is, glucose syrup, what does that mean? Gist, hop, clove, coriander. No, it's all in German. I think I can pronounce it. And it's got it in French as well, and I'm fucked if I'm speaking French.
The British earmen are complaining that there is too much Gaelic in their soup. We wish you to send them a food pistol.
The language of the wine drinker. Anyway, it's a wheat beer. It's in a white can. Wit, of course, means wheat in Flemish. Blanche, of course, means white. No, wit. Wit means white in Flemish. Blanche means, I don't know, white in French, I would imagine. Anyway, let's stop gassing. Let's get this tasted. Now, as I'm pouring this out, just a quick one. AB InBev, or Interbrew as they were known, they wanted to move this brewery, shut the original brewery down and move it to Jupiler. Now Jupiler is a massive lager brand. I've reviewed it on the channel, but it's owned by AB InBev, and they wanted to move it there. So the brewers from the Hoegaarden Brewery went to the Jupiler place to inspect it before they moved, and they said, nah, this is a pile of shit, we're not having this. And they protested, even the locals protested in Hoegaarden, and they basically said, you know, fuck off, you're taking the piss. So AB InBev relented, and they put 60 million of their own money into the Hoegaarden plant, and as far as I know, it's still there. Anyway, there it is in the glass. That's what it looks like. If you're wondering about the glass, don't worry, that is the appropriate glassware for a Witbier, certainly a small Witbier. The bigger Witbiers, I used to have one of the Hoegaarden glasses when I lived in Essex, but I think that got smashed when I was moving. But, or did I give it away? I can't remember. Fucking hell, that was 4 or 5 years ago. Far too back in the past for me to remember that. There it is in the glass. What are we getting on the nose? Yeah, it smells like a Belgian Wit. There's plenty of spice. There's plenty of that. I get white pepper, coriander, orange peel. Now the orange peel in this, they're called Caracho oranges, and I'm not saying they're unique, but they come from, I think it's South America. I don't know whether that's the original recipe, but that's what they use, and it gives it a distinct flavour. Now they use orange peel in a lot of Belgian Witbiers because that was what the recipe was. And as I said, you've got Pierre Celis to thank for that, because he revived that recipe. That would have been lost in the midst of time. I'd imagine without him, Witbier would not have tasted the same. Now, if you're really interested in the history of Witbier, and I go over all about Pierre Celis, etc., etc., check out my video on Belgian Witbier, the history of it. There it is in the glass. I think that might be the Kraken coming home. Let's get it down the hatch. Cheers. I'll just let the dogs kill themselves in the background while I'm saying this. I remember this as being not as sweet, but it does taste quite nice. The orange peel tastes sweeter. Now, I'm wondering, because I've tasted quite a few Belgian Witbiers, and they have used the orange peel. That orange tastes a lot sweeter than what I remember. Yeah, definitely. There is a sweetness when you try other really good Belgian Witbiers, and I've tried a few up there. The St Bernardus Wit, very nice indeed. The Blanche de Brussels, very nice indeed. There's a lot more spice, a lot more white pepper. This seems to, and I must admit, it's been sort of, as I say, 4 or 5 years since I drank Hoegaarden last. This seems a hell of a lot sweeter, and it is sweeter than other non-mass produced Belgian Witbiers. So I'm wondering whether AB InBev have changed this recipe. But it's not bad. I can see what I've done. It makes it slightly more palatable for, you know, the craft beer drinker who likes his fruity beers, because the orange is quite dominant. Before, it was more spice. That's what I remember. Maybe my palate's changed. Maybe. Yeah, it's sweeter than your average Belgian Wit. I think, as Pierre Celis was saying, they were trying to change the recipe to make it more marketable. I never noticed that, I must admit. This is new to me, because when I was drinking it, it tasted like a really nice Belgian Wit. But when you taste some of the better ones, actually from Belgium, you can see that this has been, yeah, I can see they've tried to make this more palatable for the mass market. It's got very strong sweet orange to it. Don't get me wrong, there is some of the Belgian esters that come from the yeast, you know, from a typical Belgian Wit. I do remember this as being more spicy, more coriander in it. It just tasted more like a Belgian Wit. This is a very sweet Belgian Wit. But having said that, all things considered, it's still quite drinkable, I have to say. Not bad. So what's the verdict on Hoegaarden? Well, this is the iconic Belgian Wit, and it's a shame it's been taken over by AB InBev. Yeah, I can imagine if Pierre Celis was brewing this stuff back in the 60s and early 70s, this would have tasted more like your St Bernardus, your Blanche de Brussels, and some of the other better Belgian Wit beers. As it stands now, it's sweeter than your average Belgian Wit, and all things considered, as a drink, as a beer, it's not bad. It doesn't really taste like a traditional Belgian Wit though. It's just too sweet for me. But I must say, it's not bad. I could drink a fair amount of this. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. It's not the best Belgian Wit, but it certainly isn't the worst. It certainly isn't the worst. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would. If you want to get into the style, this is probably the easiest way to get in, because it has got a lot of sweeter notes. If you drink some of the more traditional Belgian Wits, or the less mass-produced Belgian Wits, it's going to taste more spicier. You're going to get more of the orange peel, and you're going to get more of the coriander as well, which is basically what a Belgian Wit is about. But yeah, this is a relatively widespread alternative if you really do like that Belgian style. So there you go, 7 out of 10. Recommended with a bit of caution. And remember, beer is working class champagne.